No, there's nothing wrong with your screen. It's pitch black outside because it's 4 a.m. and we're on a backcountry road on the way to watch the sunrise from atop Mount Nemrut. The mountain is also the site of the incredible tomb of King Antiochus I, ruler of the Commagene kingdom in the 1st century BC. Antiochus was half Greek and half Armenian, so he carved himself a nice little niche between the two kingdoms. Like many ancient rulers, he fancied himself a god. Here he is, shaking hands with Hercules. Hercules is the naked guy with the club. And atop this mountain he built a tomb fit for a deity. This promises to be an extraordinary experience, except we're decaffeinated, bleary-eyed, and cold. They didn't tell us until yesterday that the temperature atop the mountain before sunrise would be 38 degrees. We didn't think we'd need to pack sweaters for the Middle East in August, but we made do with the blanket from our bed from the hotel. Poor Judy, still wearing those sandals. To make matters worse, when we got there, they handed out flashlights and told us we'd have to hike up the mountain in the dark.
How you doing, Judy?
Good ass.
It was a pretty harrowing experience. The rocky path was steep and uneven, and we didn't know where we were going. Fortunately, the van driver, Ishmael, linked arms with Judy and literally dragged her up the hill, with me in close pursuit. For that, he made a friend for life and a very generous tip. By the time we get to the top, Judy is totally frazzled, but I am totally elated. Bring on the sunrise. Okay, the sunrise is beautiful, but really, it happens every day all over the world. To see what we really came to see, we'll have to turn around and face the other direction. And here, high atop this desolate mountain, is King Antiochus' magnificent monument to himself. In ancient times it looked like this, with the king in the center, flanked by various gods and symbols of power. Defaced and vandalized following his death, it lay forgotten for almost 2,000 years. It was rediscovered in 1881 by a German engineer doing road surveying for the Ottomans. It's undergone extensive exploration, but they've never found the king's tomb. They didn't rebuild the statues, but at least they stood the heads back up, right? These heads are 2,000 years old. Best selfie ever. I feel like Indiana Jones. As if one monument was not enough, there was another one on the other side of the peak with more scattered heads. In all my travels, this is one of the most fantastic places I've ever been. As for Judy, well, maybe not so much.
Give me a little smile.
Well, Judy, I'm sure that made you feel better, but I hope that someday you'll look back on this as one of our greatest adventures. By this time, the sun's getting high in the sky and it's time to start our descent. And if you're thinking, oh, that doesn't look so bad, try doing it in the dark. We made it. That glass of hot apple tea has never been so welcome. And by the way, about that blouse, we bought it from a local stand the day before because it was the only thing we could find with long sleeves. She still wears it once in a while on casual Fridays at work. We had a little trouble getting back to the main road due to a traffic jam.
Yo, buddy, I'm driving here. Get your cow out of the road.
Give me a break. We sat there for over 10 minutes waiting for the stupid cows to cross the road. Still, not something that you see every day, at least not in Wilmington, Delaware. After a hearty breakfast and some much-needed coffee, Judy is smiling again. Our journey continues east and south as we enter the Fertile Crescent and travel into Mesopotamia. From here, we can see why they called it the Fertile Crescent. There are scattered ruins from the Commagene Kingdom and the Roman Empire. It's pretty remote, with more livestock than people. I'll bet there are some things that haven't changed that much in the past 1,000 years. Maybe the power lines. Yeah, at least that's progress. Here we are. We finally made it. The Euphrates River. This is the real Euphrates, not just a branch. Indeed, this rustic scene is likely unchanged for thousands of years, but the power lines attest that not everything here is ancient. Merhaba. Taking a break with a cup of tea at the Ataturk Dam. This massive project started in 1983. uses the power of the Euphrates River to supply power to this part of Turkey. We're about 100 miles from the border with Syria, several hundred from the border with Iraq, and about 500 from Iran. And yet from here, it's as peaceful as can be. This is as close as I want to be to danger.
But not Judy. She lives for danger. Right, honey?
No!
We go back to biblical times in the town of Haran. The Bible, yes, the Bible, states that Abraham, yes, the Abraham, lived here before God commanded him to go to Canaan. These beehive homes, made of adobe mud and stone, were the traditional habitat for thousands of years. Now, they're just tourist attractions.
Here we are, in Mesopotamia.
Oh, look at the baby camel. He's so cute. Give us a smile. Oh, nice teeth.
Welcome to my hive. I'll buzz you in. How cozy. Fit for a queen. Cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Dinner will be ready soon. Here in Haran, we're only about 15 miles from the Syrian border, and we certainly don't want to go there. Fortunately, this was before the deterioration of the Syrian civil war and the rise of ISIS, so we were never in danger. Still, we'd never come to this part of the world without the safety of a group tour. But there's not much else doing in Haran besides the ruins of this old mosque, so we'll backtrack about 30 miles and bunk down for the night in the southern capital of Urfa. Good morning from Sanliurfa. The name means glorious Urfa. As we take in the view from the 9th floor breakfast room at our hotel, there's, well, nothing really architecturally outstanding about the city. But Sanliurfa's claim to fame, the reputed birthplace of Abraham. Yes, the Abraham, father of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. What a guy. The Bible states that Abraham was born in a cave in the city of Ur, and the city of Urfa has staked its claim. Hey, no one knows for sure, and it sounds plausible. So I am ready to see the home of the greatest granddaddy of my peeps. Except, all the other peeps appear to be from Muslim countries. And the site is a mosque filled with Islamic pilgrims. And then I remembered my Bible genealogy. Sarah was initially infertile, and before she bore Abraham Isaac, establishing Judaism, her handmaiden Hagar bore him Ishmael, establishing Islam. Somehow they glossed over that part in Hebrew school. I get the feeling the folks here are from the other side of my family tree. I think I'm the only Jewish person here, and I'm keeping quiet about that. Next to the mosque, the pool of holy carp. Both the Quran and Torah relate the story that when Abraham smashed the statues of the idols, King Nimrod threw him into the flame, but God saved him. In the Muslim tradition, God turned the fire into water and the flaming embers into fish, hence the holy carp. You can't eat them. I think there's a curse. But for a small fee, you can feed them,
And naturally, feed the fish, baby. Give him a bunch, honey.
I know, honey.
Throw it in.
Ah!
Those are big fish, too.
Go, guys.
Of course, they have people like Judy feeding them all the time. Wow. It's a feeding frenzy.
Some are actually like surfacing with their eyes above the water.
And now, to the cave. The sign says, "This is the cave where Prophet Abraham was born." And since we're talking real Islam here, separate entrances for men and women. Judy donned her chic headscarf, but apparently it wasn't good enough, as one lady yelled at her in angry Turkish and another one threw on a long abaya robe. And now,
the transformation is complete. Behold, Muslim Judy.
she was not happy, but wisely went along. Here's the entrance on my side. The doorway's only about a meter tall, I guess to make you bow as you enter the sacred space. And notice that while Judy has to wear a smelly old robe, men can wear shorts and short sleeves. What a patriarchy. But then, the anteroom is this tiny little chamber, and you can only view the dimly lit cave through the small glass window. And here it is. Somewhat underwhelming. You'd think they'd do something to jazz it up a little bit, like maybe some action figures or interactive touchscreen technology. Just kidding. At least some better lighting. When I stepped back, for a minute I was alone in the chamber. And in that minute I contemplated the enormity of standing in the footsteps of my ancient ancestor, Abraham, from the Torah, the Quran, the Old Testament, the book of Genesis. How awesome is that? It took the better part of 2 days to retrace our steps and make it back to Istanbul. We wandered back down to Sultan Ahmet Square so I could try my hand at some night portrait photography. It's tricky, and I won't show you the ones that didn't come out, but the ones that did looked great. Tomorrow, we'll be on our own to explore some of Istanbul's less ostentatious attractions. At the end of an unassuming street, next to the lawnmower repair shop, a lonely security guard sits checking his phone in front of a museum. No crowds here because it's the Jewish Museum of Turkey. Barely mentioned in the tour guides, we read about it in an old New York Times travel article. Housed in a former synagogue, the museum celebrates the good relations Turks have always had with their native Jews. The Ottomans welcomed Jews who were expelled from Europe during the Inquisition and later pogroms. Here's something you won't see every day: a Jew wearing a fez. That Ataturk, he really was an enlightened leader. Turkey was the first Muslim country to recognize the new state of Israel.
Many Jews have since left for Israel, and relations have been more strained with the country's recent, more fundamentalist turn, but there are still Jews and synagogues in Istanbul, to which we say, L'chaim. Time to go shopping. Our next stop, the Spice Bazaar. While not as old or grand as the Grand Bazaar, it's a little less touristy and filled with more everyday functional items. True to its name, all types of spices. All kinds of teas. Look at that. Lemon tea, energy tea, apple tea, diabetic sugar cholesterol tea, black tea, stomach tea, rose tea, pomegranate tea, jasmine tea, love tea, mixed green tea, and relaxed tea. I wanted to try the love tea, but Judy was afraid of what I might do to her. In this store, you can get all kinds of seeds and gardening supplies. And leeches. Ew! I don't know what you would use those for. They do have some medical uses, but I'd have to be pretty sick before I'd let them do this to me. Here, the most awesome bird pet shop we have ever seen. They had at least one of every kind of bird you could possibly imagine. And even some that we couldn't name. I think these guys made Judy a little homesick. Aw, don't worry, honey, we'll be home soon. But what they really had the most of at the Spice Bazaar was food. All different kinds of it. We love looking through foreign food markets. Fruits and nuts. Fruits with nuts. Olives, Judy's favorite. Sugary sweet snacks, my favorite. I had one of everything, like fruit jellies. Halva, made from sweetened sesame paste, in all kinds of varieties. And more Turkish delight than you can shake a root canal at. Big fish. Little fish. Big fish. Big shrimp. Meat, sliced to order by a real butcher. Sausage, but no pork. This is a Muslim country. And tripe, lamb stomach, an acquired taste, I'm sure. Oh, and don't forget the hooves. Fortunately, Judy was content to just shop for souvenirs, and as usual, drove a hard bargain. Don't be fooled by that smiling face. You do not want to mess with Judy. Adjacent to the Spice Bazaar and built in the same era is the new mosque. This is the same mosque we saw when we first arrived in Istanbul. New mosque. Ha ha. It was new 350 years ago. Guess they never got around to renaming it. There's an awful lot of people hanging out on the steps. I guess because it's shady, but also, it's that time again. I like the guy grabbing a quick snack before prayers. They've got a visitors gallery, so time once again to take off our shoes and head inside. Although I get the feeling Judy's getting a little tired of that headscarf. Hey Judy, at least I didn't make you put on the robe with the hoodie. Ah, that's the attitude. And it's worth it, because it is pretty magnificent in here. The building was commissioned by the Sultaness, that's Mrs. Sultan, and it's a testament to what you can do with unlimited wealth and power. And it's held up pretty well for the past 350 years. Our next destination was a little hard to find, despite having the address and the map. We wandered around behind the Hagia Sophia in 85-degree blazing sunlight until we finally found the Mosaic Museum. The mosaics are the remnants of the walkway of the Great Palace of Constantinople and date from the mid-6th century, although they weren't unearthed until the year 1938. Mosaics were a high art form back then, and none but the best would be in the emperor's palace. They depict scenes from everyday Roman life as well as heroic and mythological themes. Sadly, as with so many ancient relics, each dynasty just built over the previous, and some are badly damaged. Join us as we step through a time portal to ancient Rome. Lest you think everything in Istanbul is ancient, there is a more modern area across the Galata Bridge. There's a very busy shopping and restaurant district with some surprising American touches, like the Bronx, Istanbul's hotspot for cutting-edge trendy teen fashions. We love outlets, but couldn't find anything to our liking. I don't think TJ Maxx has anything to worry about. Inside this beautifully restored Art Deco building is a shopping mall, and in the food court, Popeye's Louisiana Chicken, and Arby's, one of Judy's favorites. We weren't that homesick to eat there, and hey, we're in Istanbul, so we had some more kebabs. But, strangely, notice the big mural of New York City on the wall behind me. Go figure. For our final stop in Istanbul, we go deep, both in time, back to the 6th century, and 30 feet beneath the city streets, to the massive underground cistern. This engineering marvel stored water to supply the imperial palace above it, the same one with the mosaics. After the Muslim conquest, it was forgotten for hundreds of years, until someone noticed that folks were catching fish through holes in their basements. Now, it's a fantastic tourist site. The vaulted ceiling is supported by 336 columns, many with ornate Corinthian capitals, even though very few people would actually see them. And, to get really weird, there are two huge heads at the base of a couple of them, one upside down and one sideways. It's thought that they were recycled from an old pagan temple
and placed that way because, well, they just fit.
Bu akşam bütün meyhaneleri dolaştım. İstanbul, seni aradım kaderlerdeki dudak izlerinde.
James Bond, 007, rode a boat through this mysterious locale in From Russia with Love, and Robert Langdon, Harvard symbologist, had an epic scene here in a Dan Brown novel and movie. And now, Mark and Judy, American adventurers, conclude their epic Turkish expedition in the same place. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time somewhere in the world.